African-American lawyer and publisher, Robert Sangsteak Abbott. Born in 1868 and died in 1940. Founded the Chicago Defender on May 6, 1905. He was born to former slaves Thomas and Flora Abbott in a cabin in Frederica, St. Simon's Island, Georgia, according to a Philadelphia-based Mount Union College website on Abbott's effect. Soon Abbott's father died of tuberculosis and Flora remarried to John Herman Henry Sangsteak, and it is here the legacy began. Abbott's stepfather John was a hard-working, well-educated man. John's father, also John Herman Henry Sangsteak, was a German sea captain from Bremen, Germany who settled in Savannah, Georgia during the late 1830s, according to Jocelyn D. Passelin, vice president of event marketing, Sangsteak family historian and Abbott's great-niece. He bought a woman named Tama at auction out of outrage and pity, but she died shortly after giving birth to their daughter. The German sea captain, not wanting his children to become slaves, if anything were to happen to him, sent them to Germany, to be raised by his sister. D. Passelin said, the Civil War kept him from returning to see his children before he did. After his death, Abbott's stepfather, John, came to settle the sea captain's estate. That is where he met Flora, Abbott's mother, who was a recent widow. Her husband Thomas, Abbott's natural father, died of tuberculosis shortly after Abbott was born. She was fighting her in-laws over the rights to her son, Shesade. John Sangsteak married Flora and together they raised 7 of their children. Abbott's stepfather, John, became a Congregationalist minister and operated a school for black children, said the website. African American Registry. Frederick Douglass, at the age of 75, delivered a speech at the Columbian Exposition but was heckled by a crowd of rowdy whites. He made his speech anyway about how blacks serve great purpose in the world and Abbott was there watching and learning. He said that Abbott was in Chicago for the first time and Ida B. Wells had recently emerged as a major leader and voice within the African American community. And all 3 of these people were journalists. Abbott went on to receive a law degree from Kent College of Law, Chicago in 1898, but because of race prejudice in the United States, he was unable to practice, in spite of attempts to establish law offices in Gary, Indiana, Topeka, Kansas, and Chicago, Illinois. So he returned to his roots. His stepfather John had a print shop of his own. Christopher Reed, in the film The Black Press, Soldiers Without Swords, said he visiting every barber shop, poolroom, drugstore, and church in the south side of Chicago. Writes for Wiley, author of The Lonely Warrior, The Life and Times of Robert S. Abbott. Local news was the thrust of the Chicago Defender, as it is today. Abbott started his earliest reporting by gathering tidbits around his neighborhood. His newspaper was penned the world's greatest weekly and eventually made Abbott one of the first black self-made millionaires through publishing. He worked for 15 years to make the newspaper successful, the African American Registry website said. He also immersed himself into the world of the black press. Black Chicago got to see their world chronicled in print. Our news and neighborhoods were ignored. We didn't exist in theater papers. We were neither born, we didn't get married, we didn't die, we didn't fight in any wars, we never participated in anything of a scientific achievement. We were truly invisible, unless we committed a crime. But in the black press, the Negro press, we did get married. They showed us, and our babies being born. They showed us graduating. They showed our PhDs, Vernon Jarrett said. In the film, Black Press, Soldiers Without Swords, more than 500,000 blacks migrated from the south to the north, with more than 50,000 settling in Chicago. Abbott used the Defender to encourage migration to the north. He would post job notices and writings about better conditions in the north. He also used red headlines to speak his mind on lynching that happened in the South in hopes more Southern blacks will relocate to the North. Defender had a potential black audience nearly 200 times larger than in Chicago, and an audience that was hungry to hear what Abbott had to say. Filmmaker Stanley Nelson said. James Grossman of Nelson's film said the Chicago Defender was blatant with the truth. The Defender would say things like, when the white fiends come to the door, shoot them down. When the mob comes, take it least on with you. Those were things that, if you were a black Southern newspaper, if you were a newspaper editor in Birmingham, Alabama, you can't say that, because your newspaper's going to get torched, or you're going to get run out of town. The nickname of public defender still sticks in the minds of those in the community who need help today. Abbott's editorial creed was to fight against segregation, discrimination and disenfranchisement. The Defender reached national prominence during World War I, when the paper's banner headline for January 6, 1917, read "Millions to leave South." The Defender became the Bible of man seeking the Promised Land. Abbott used the full resources of the paper, articles, editorials, cartoons, poems, and 49 even songs, in a campaign to urge the Defender's readers to come north. The paper even printed train schedules, one way to Chicago. Nelson said in his film. Abbott advertised Chicago so effectively that even migrants sitting for other northern cities sought information and assistance from the pages of the world's greatest weekly. The Chicago Defender was remarkably successful in encouraging blacks to migrate from the South to Chicago, often listing names of churches and other organizations to whom they could write for help, such as the Bethlehem Baptist Association in Chicago, Illinois, according to information from the Library of Congress. Buy short stories, real life at lulu.com/LeJohn S. Cloud.